Audience, please attend carefully. There are massive spoilers for Star Trek Picard ahead. For Star Trek Picard Season 1, Episode 7, Nepenthe, or Nepenthe, or Nepenthe, however you like to say it. Anyways, lots of spoilers and some speculation. If you're here for it, I hope you enjoy. And we are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we are talking about Star Trek Picard, Episode 7, Nepenthe. I think I said that right.
I think so.
and I'm joined today by Gary from Trekkerprise. Hello, welcome back, Gary.
Oh, I'm supposed to talk now? Hi, welcome, hi.
Yes,
it's
yes,
good to be back. Good to be. I thought I was never gonna make it again, but here am I. The platform worked, and I ended up in Starfleet Boy. I made it.
Oh well, we have technical difficulties, so we're gonna have to do some live. This is a part of Starfleet Boy. We're gonna have to do some live adjustments. When you laughed, you completely went, like, your audio blew out, so we have to make your mic move. It just
was a bit too close to my mouth, so I put it down now, so it's adjusted.
Oh, okay. You can move it up just a little bit more, and then breathe. I want to hear you go, so I can hear with them. Breathe harder.
Breathe harder.
Oh, do the yes, there it is. That's a very good Darth Vader. Oh wow.
All right, stop it.
I think we're safe now. All right, good. I heard you laugh, so that was good. It sounded good. The levels are normal. It's very important. We have an audience, a couple of audience members who are audiophiles, and they say sometimes Starfleet Boy sounds amazing, but 80% of the time it sounds bad. So whenever I can, I have to try to do it. And then we have an ASMR audience that loves it when it's when you can hear everything, like the breath, like what you just did.
Awesome. They're gonna love my Darth Vader. Now I have to be in every podcast just to do that one bit.
I feel very privileged because just like Star Trek, Starfleet Boy has lovers of some parts of it and haters of other parts of it. But hey, we're all here together, which is the
of course.
nice thing. Gary, I have to say that I'm going to be a crazy person during this podcast because I'm so hype. Like, the hype is so crazy in me right now. It's like I can't stop thinking about Star Trek Picard. I'm almost grateful that it's going to end in 3 weeks because I'm so obsessed. I've never been more obsessed with anything, and so I'm just giving you a warning.
Okay, noted. But I was kind of expecting this anyway.
You might get the...
I mean,
but I learned... I got a spoiler, which is something we hardly ever do on Starfleet Boy, that your rating is not going to be a 10 today. So I don't want you to... I don't want you to give your rating...
Fake news. No, I said that.
Okay, so don't tell us your rating now. Save it for the end. But I'm gonna try to guess what your rating is gonna be, and if I'm right, I win like a prize. How's that?
What's the prize?
The prize is I get to force you to change your rating.
Trekkerprise.
If I guess correctly, I get to force you to change your rating.
Okay.
And
Deal.
if I guess incorrectly, you get to force me to change my rating. How about that, so that it's fair?
Okay, but if that's the case, you cannot vote 11, so I cannot downgrade you to 10 because that's not fair.
All right, fair is fair. Okay, cool. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Do you want to go into the things that you loved about this episode,
because
or do a summary, or
because I don't think we do summary in this recaps, are we?
No, we don't. Oh, I do have to tell. I was talking about this when we were not recording, but audience, this is a new experimental format of Starfleet Boy, where instead of seeing our faces, you're gonna see like imagery, so that you can listen to us and watch some interesting imagery related to Star Trek on your screen. So I don't know what that imagery is yet, but I'm sure some of it will be relevant to episode 7 of Star Trek Picard. It could be stars. I don't know.
This bit probably gonna be stars filled, looking out of the tent forward.
I love the star. Do you think, Gary? Do you know how to design star fields?
I wish.
Like animated ones?
No, I think you need to have someone like very skilled for that. I mean, it's difficult because when you say you're a graphic designer, people assume that you can do everything, which is, would be the case, but not in everything. I mean, it's as long as you say like you're an artist, like okay, but artist has many fields as well, so you can. It's a complicated one.
You have to remember. I always try to remind myself and everyone, because I have some limited design abilities, that these things you can't, like, you're not like Soji. You can't just pick up a 300-page book and read it in a minute. Humans have to actually learn the craft to do it well. So
yeah, of course,
it does take time. So you have to specialize. So yeah,
and especially like these days. I mean, there's a lot of fields involved with art and design and in general, like VFX, and I'm like one of the side practices that no one uses anymore. Like one of those old surgeons that still operates with scalpels and leeches.
Oh wow!
No, okay, not going that far, because I'm kind of ruining my my image as a graphic designer. But no, for that level of you need someone who's more like a VFX artist.
Well, we're gonna go ahead and say that as far as Starfleet Boy is concerned, you can do anything you. With Gary, because if he can't do it, he'll find someone who can. So I still recommend hiring Gary, because he'll get you to the right designer.
That's a shameless promotion.
Shameless promotion.
This promotion wasn't paid. I approve it.
The United Federation of Designers. Gary, you're the president as far as I'm concerned.
Wow, too much pressure.
But I'm sure there's another president. I don't know if there's even a real thing such as a United Federation of Designers, but if there's not, there should be.
Well, I firmly believe. Just a quick side note in that remark. There's one designer who I wish it would be like he could be, because he's qualified in many ways, and he's an Oregon-based artist, Aaron Draplin. I'm not sure if you heard of him. He's absolutely brilliant. If I could vote for someone, he would be the guy. He's like the god.
Later you'll have to send me.
He's like the god of graphic design.
Send me after the conversation his link on Twitter.
I will.
And I will
he's awesome. He's really awesome.
And if my video person can do it, they can put maybe an image here from that artist if they have some that are for public use. So we'll find out. Oh, can we put your images on? Can we mix your image? I'm asking permission live on the It saves the paperwork.
Wow. What a paperwork. Yeah, of course. If you like, I can send you some pictures that you can put to fill the gaps when I'm mumbling around in the air. Absolutely.
Can you also? you know what would be great? I have a plan now. I don't know if my video designer will do this anymore. But could you send your official avatar too, like whatever it
Oh,
is,
yeah.
like so that, and then I can put. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I can do that.
We're gonna have Trekkerprise all over this.
Oh.
It's gonna be awesome. All right, I'm
So
excited.
you're gonna turn off half of your viewer base.
So the reason we're doing this new experimental format, audience, is because I have a cold and I do not feel video presentable. Don't worry. If you want to see my face, you can go back to the Thursday discussion. It's very fresh. My face hasn't changed since then. And as far as Gary's face is concerned, I miss it too, but we can slap it up in the imagery somehow. So we'll figure out a way to get it in there too.
If you really want to, you don't have to. My face is not really presentable.
I want to know. I want to know what your biggest critiques are, because I think we should end with the love.
With love critiques.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
So first, go into what you did not. What made you give a lower or not a 10? Oh, I haven't told you your rating. Hold on, sorry. Oh, we're supposed to play this game. Let's see. I'm gonna guess that your rating is a 9. Don't say it.
Okay, you will find out after the commercial. No.
All right. Now I want to know what made you give a lower rating.
Okay, so this is something that actually someone pointed out. Again, friend of mine who I got to know from the Twitter group. I think about a year ago or so, and he regularly correspond with each other, and he pointed out quite a big thing that I kind of guessed myself, but I never really wanted to face the issue and face the problem that I'm troubling with the new Star Trek series, and not just regarding Picard, but even Discovery as well. There's some point that I just like, why that I had these why moments, like, why did you have to do this? And in this series so far, this is, I think, the 4th case that something happens with a beloved character, and
yes, I knew that was gonna be it. I knew it. Oh my gosh, I have the same problem.
So
but go on. Sorry.
Yeah, so getting Hugh killed off in this episode made me not to love this episode as much as I love the other ones, and lower my rating as well. Not so much, but I did lower my rating because of that fact. It's just bad. Like, going back to quickly for Discovery, a lot of people got announced prior the premiere, prior the show, and almost half of them got killed in the first episode, and they made such a big deal out of it. In Picard, we got to know. Obviously, we didn't know if it's gonna be Soji or Daj, but or the 2-person will be the same. I think I did address that in last week's episode, and we talked about this, how the trailer reflected the episodes, and we had no clue that there's gonna be 2 android playing in this series. So I didn't even know that Soji will be the one who we're gonna follow her journey on the show, and Daj just gonna be killed off in the first episode. Just bad enough.
Right. No, it's crazy.
And then we see
crazy.
Bruce Maddox being killed off at one point later on in the show, who was a returning character, and I really wanted to know what he was up to all these years, and it would have been nice to hear the story behind Maddox that we kind of missed from the irregular interactions with Data and in the TNG episodes. And then Icheb. I mean, I know they didn't cast the previous actor, they didn't really want to go down that way, but
no, but you're talking about the character. We're talking about the character
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
it's like, why did you have to decide his fate just like so visually as well, which was quite hard to digest in a sense. A few times I covered my eyes because I was just like, it was just too much for me.
Oh no, it was a horrible thing.
It
was a horrible scene. It was actually like, if they had put, I think that there's a lot. This is an aside that I just thought of, but like, there's a lot of people that were upset about that scene, but they were also upset that the original actor was not in there.
Yeah.
I think it would have been even more traumatic if they put Manu into Raimi and had killed him. So Hugh was a huge loss because it was the actual
Yeah,
actor.
exactly.
Also, it was a lot of levels. Yeah, but go on.
No,
Sorry,
no,
I
no.
didn't mean to
That's
interrupt you.
basically no. That's basically it. I mean, just having these characters killed off front of our eyes, who we loved and cared. And someone was reacting on on my HF video that I did ages ago for a character data file. I think it was a year ago. Still people watching it because now the character briefly made a cameo, and someone said like, "Oh, they just killed each other. Now you have to have to update your video file." And I did make a comment on one of the comments saying that I really hope that they stop killing people in the rest of the series, but they just killed Hugh, and I was like, why did you have to kill Hugh? And like he was so broken already. He would have
I
deserved a
I
little bit of hope.
personally I personally don't believe he's dead. I think that the nanoprobes are going to put him in a coma. Then the Borg cube is going to reabsorb him. Unfortunately, he will get reassimilated, and then he won't be able to become XB again. But I think that there's a chance that we could keep Hugh in some form moving forward, because I love Hugh. You know this. I think
of
you
course.
remember on Starfleet. He's like so.
Many
I hate this. I hate this. I hate this choice, but I have to admit it was so well performed, and so I have a lot of trouble hating it, because if you have to see your favorite character, one of your favorite characters die, it should always have a profound meaning when it happens. So I think that was the difference also with Icheb. He didn't get that moment with 7 of 9. Even though it is pretty profound, I think there are a few people that can understand what it's like to have to make a difficult choice, and can relate to that. But the show is a very heavy show. It's totally filled with death. I don't know how much loss you've experienced in your personal life, but for me, what I'm enjoying about having to, I don't know if enjoy is a good word, Gary, but what I feel is the benefit of having to witness and go through this loss of our favorite characters is that it's actually helping me deal with personal loss in my real life. And I think that's a great thing. Like, I want my favorite TV show, if it's my choice, I would not watch any other TV show except for Star Trek. Like, I'm done with everything else. Star Trek's the only thing that's really interesting to me. So it's good when Star Trek is challenging me. I think it reminds me of like when I was a kid, and if you think about the things that happen in TNG, there's a lot of loss throughout TNG. It's just not done as emotionally as it is here, and I think that's brand new. That's something that's brand new.
I have to be really honest with you. When and going back to TNG, when Tasha Yard passed away in the episode, I mean, the crew of the Enterprise was more depressed than I was. And I'm not saying it with mean remarks. It's just I somehow, maybe that's because I didn't really connect with the character in a deep level that I kind of connected with Data. Because when I first seen Nemesis, I cried at the end of the episode, and every time I watched it after all, I always cried because he died, and just always kept reminding myself of the memories that I had witnessed over the 7 years of TNG plus the 4 movies. But the same with Terry Farrell when Dex died. I was emotionally challenged with the problem.
I think Dax.
That we faced.
I think Dax was the first. I think Dax was the first modern era death that I had a lot of trouble with. I remember having trouble with that. I want to point out something that may or may not be interesting, but I think it's interesting that when you look at Star Trek, from the TARDIS matrix, from the fourth dimension, you can see the original series and we're going there. You can see the original series and the original series films as one era. And what's really profound to me as a fan is that even though there's this great story when you watch, with Captain Kirk and Spock and all those guys, and this is like a Magnus performance, right? Like, these people acted these parts for like many years. I think it has to have been 20 years.
Yeah.
And they get the sign off where all of them were alive and well at the end of their journey. We're not going to get that with Star Trek The Next Generation. This show, Star Trek Picard, to me represents the closing chapter on the TNG characters. I've always felt that because they're getting older. You know, all of our beloved actors, they're getting close to the age where they may not want to perform anymore, or perhaps they may pass into the Nexus. Who knows? But but regardless, one of the things that I remember about the original series is losing Spock, because I remember it happened in real time. Like, I remember when Star Trek 3 came out and we lost Spock, and then we got him back at the end of Star Trek 3, and then Star Trek 4. It was such a happy occasion as a person who loves these stories. When I was a kid, I always have hoped that we would get Data back. The whole, I wanted, before I put so much investment in my imagination that,
Me too.
that would happen. And even in the, what you call the B canon, but it's, really we call it the Apocrypha, there is a story where Data comes back through B4. He's able to express himself through B4. So to me, that loss is where it started. It's like we never got Data back, and we still don't have him back. So this crew is already gonna end their journey without one of their beloved people, and you could see how they all were shook by that. Like, everyone, and then in this episode there's even more loss, because it's not just Hugh that we lose, but they make us fall in love with this great character named Thad Riker.
Oh yeah,
he's already dead.
Yeah,
so it's
that's a crazy thing as well. However, in a
I'm a little teary. I wish we were actually recording our videos, because I'm actually a little teary-eyed right now, because the episode is very powerful to me from an emotional perspective.
No, I can feel that, and the same with me too. Totally.
Can you feel the love tonight?
I knew you were gonna say that.
Can you feel the love tonight? PJ told me if I sing too much of a song that they'll block it.
They block it.
That you can't sing anymore.
Can we sing "Row, row, row your boat"
anymore.
Gently down the street?
Oh, let's. We should do that at the end. If you remember, we're gonna do "Row, row, row your boat" at the end.
It just popped up in my mind because I had like an hour and a half between two shifts, and I while I was having some food, I watched some videos on YouTube, and Star Trek 5, one of my favorite Star Trek movie, which I know probably I'm gonna get some negative comments on your feed later on, but I started watching a few scenes from it, and Row Your Boat came in, and I was like, oh, I just miss them so much. Like, I have to rewatch the movies again.
I think that's the thing that a lot of people forget. Everyone has this experience with Star Trek where, even if it's not considered to be, a masterpiece work of art, it still has something very redeemable about it, and that's kind of how I feel about Star Trek Discovery. When I think about it, it's like that's what draws me to Star Trek Discovery, is that what's redeemable is the story and the performances. I think I'm a lover of performance, and I really love that. You made a remark that in the marketing they get you interested in all these new actors, and so we're used to, when the press releases come out, we're used to thinking, oh, these people are going to be people we're going to get to know for many seasons. But I think that, like, it's that casting people to last throughout a whole show is really hard to do nowadays. They're not going to be able to get that.
Suddenly,
I hope
suddenly, like Game of Thrones, casting style came to conclusion to various TV shows. Like, that's the standard that they have to follow because it worked. Like, let's do the same thing.
It's true.
Or Walking Dead, like, you have to kill someone every season.
It's on record on previous Starfleet Boy episodes, but I always dreamt that we would get one more Star Trek The Next Generation film before Picard was announced. I always was, like, hopeful that we would get, like, a Star Trek 6 for the for the
for the
for the
TNG
crew
crew.
of for the TNG crew exactly.
Well, that would have been
Um,
good, but I
but
knew that
no,
Nemesis will be
but
the last because that's how they actually advertise the whole
I
show
didn't.
as well. Like the
Yeah,
generation's final journey
I
begins.
didn't. I didn't believe that because I thought that if enough people, like I know myself personally myself, if I ever amass like a huge fortune, let's say for some really weird reason, like overnight, I became a billionaire, I would fund that movie from my pocket. Like I would give it as a gift to humanity. So I think that the
Yeah,
possibilities are endless. But I will say, I will say, this show is giving me the satisfaction that I was hoping for from that idea of a farewell to the TNG cast. It has to be a farewell. There's no other way it can be. So when that finally happens, I think it's going to be epic. I think that the writers have a great plan. If they don't have a great plan, they'll figure it out by season 3. And I love what they're doing right now. Like so far, everything for me has been just perfect. And I said this on Twitter, but I'm gonna say it now, so you can hear how crazy I am. But I want Captain Soji to be the I wanted, like, when Picard ends, I would love for there to finally be a return to Star Trek: The Exploration Show, and have it be on board a Starship Enterprise. It could be the F. I don't care, but I would love it. If it was,
you don't give an F.
I don't give an F if it's the F. But I would love that show to come back and for it to be the Star Trek that everyone knows and expects, and it will also be a new Star Trek because Captain Soji will lead us to that new final frontier, the next final frontier, I guess you can say. And if Issa Briones is interested, she could totally pull it off. She's a really strong performer. When you see her interacting with all the actors on Nepenthe, it's just so natural. She seems like she is giving this performance a level that I never could have imagined. So I just love it.
No, she's a
and she's Data's daughter. She's Data for real. She's Data's daughter, and why not? So like that's an amazing thing
yeah.
too.
She was a big surprise for me in many ways because I okay, seeing all the press tours and the press interviews on British media and on US media with the actors, and obviously Patrick Stewart and Jerry Ryan was the two main characters who doing the interviews with all these people, and Asa Briones came along in a few times as well, but I always felt that the interviewers were more interested on Patrick Stewart and Jerry Ryan than Issa Briones, but and she kind of got into the background of this whole press side of things. But she's a really big surprise for me too. She's absolutely amazing as an actress. I really adore what she did with Daj and with
Think
Soji too.
yeah, and that's impressive. Like she had to do what because you felt the loss of Dodge too. You mentioned her in your
Yeah,
list of dead
yeah,
characters. That
yeah. I literally I felt sorry.
so
Like, why
she
did
was
they have to
able
kill
to
her?
in one episode she was able to make you fall in love with this character, and then that character is taken away from us. It's really I don't know. I think that, like, to me that is really good TV because it so far we've gotten, I think there's some things that are untouchable. I don't think we can lose any more of the TNG. They have to just ride off into the sunset at the end and live happily ever after. You know what I mean? But I think Soji can do it. She can save the galaxy. She can set things
Well,
right. I believe
hopefully,
in her.
hopefully. I mean, I really hope we're not gonna lose any more people. But again, touch wood. I always every single episode reviews when someone died, and like I put a remark and it's, oh, I hope this was the last one, and then the next episode someone else died, and I'm like, really? So I think in the last review of mine on my weblog, I did mention that, okay, I'm not gonna say that I'm not gonna anyone no gonna die, because every time when I say something like that, someone will eventually gonna die in the next episode who I care about. So no, I'm not believing that as like bad omen saying that I hope not gonna no one gonna die. So bad.
Just, I think the thing you have to remember about Star Trek Picard is that nothing is safe and nothing is sacred. Everything is on the table.
But you know,
But
it kind of reminded me of the remark that Ira Steven Berg said with the roundtable conversation on the season 8, the DS9 first episode, when, you know what, this is Deep Space Nine, don't get comfortable. Like, it kind of has the same vibe in here. It's like, this is Star Trek Picard. It's way past the happy TNG days. Don't get comfortable.
I think Star Trek Picard is also different. They've always been saying, "Hey guys," and I'm guilty of this because that's what I wanted the most was TNG Part 2. But I think everyone was very clear in the production team that, "Hey guys, don't get attached to that idea. This is something different." What this is to me is this is a culmination of all the Star Treks that came before it. Even Discovery, is part of Star Trek Picard. To me, Star Trek Picard is showing kind of like parts and bits of every different Star Trek. We obviously, with Voyager is very heavy in here.
Yeah.
Deep Space Nine has already come into play in Star Trek Picard.
Yeah. Bless you.
Okay.
DS9. In
Remember
what way?
Quark's Bar.
Okay.
On Stardust City, and then also and then I would argue just the level of darkness, that people are talking about. It's very reminiscent of the darkness that I saw in Deep Space Nine. And, even Enterprise, I'm sure, will somehow come into play. I thought Riker said Zindi, but he said Sinti. It's a different thing in this episode. But anyways, there's a lot of, obviously TOS references with the Romulan Warbird. So this show, to me, is the show that's kind of like, it's going to bring unity, I think. I might be I might be a little optimistic here, but I think it's going to bring unity to the community of Star Trek fans in a way that it never has before, because even before this modern era where now, people are saying there's the new Star Trek and old Star Trek fans, and then, before that it was, if you're a Voyager fan, you were separated. If you were a Enterprise fan, you were separated. So there's all kinds of ways that we can create
boundaries,
divisions in the community, but ultimately Star Trek is one thing, and
it's one
this
big entity
story
with many subsidiaries, basically.
Yeah, it's a huge story. And the story is continuing, and I'm loving where it's at. I loved this episode in so many ways. Okay, so I think we have to give a shout out because it is Jonathan Del Arco's birthday today when we're recording this. So we should give a shout out to Jonathan Del Arco. Yeah.
Oh, well, if you're listening to Jonathan Del Arco, from the both of us, and from many others.
Jonathan Del Arco also does a podcast. I want
Really?
to try to listen to it. I haven't had a chance. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to hear it yet. But I think his first guest might have been Michelle Hurd, if I'm not mistaken. So, I've only heard
love
little
of God,
bits of it. Sounds
I do. Oh, Hollywood Caucus. Is that the one?
good. That's it. That's the pod. Yeah, that's.
Oh,
the
this is like a really, really new thing.
Yeah, it's super.
That's
new.
interesting. No, I there's something else to. There's something else to listen to as well.
My cold is the Tal Shiar, the Jad Vash is trying to infect me with a virus to stop me from talking about Star Trek Picard. So we got to stay on task here. So I want to know now about the scenes on the Borg cube. If you could take yourself back to that, what did you love? Like, what did you note about all that stuff? What do you think is going on
In
with
the Borg cube?
Vash and
With the
the story?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
well,
I don't really know.
I guess not just Borg.
I think. No, go on. Sorry.
Well, so, okay, in this episode, in the beginning, we get the reveal that, which we all knew was happening, but we get to see what she actually did is the Commodore O, corrupts Agnes. She is able to give her information about something so horrible that it corrupts her, and she's able to murder one of her best friends and a lover because of this information, and she regrets anything to do with creating Daj and Soji because Maddox gives her credit for helping to create them. So we get that information and we see her fighting the corruption. So she's still very. I don't think she got the whole story, but it was enough to get her crazy enough to do that.
Yeah.
But whatever knowledge Commodore O has, it can really like change the minds of a rational person, because Jurati was a scientist and very well put together as far as ideas of reality. So she's shook. So it's very troubling to watch her. But I liked her performance here. I liked the story arc there. So the Zhat Vash have this secret that they're trying to protect, and we also know that they hate. They have a severe hatred for artificial and synthetic life forms. So they just don't want it to exist. And then Ramda, the Romulan ex-Borg, said that Soji was the destroyer. Elnor comes from another group of Romulans that is the enemy of the Tal Shiar. They're like the foe of the Tal Shiar. So the Zhat Vash even knew what she was. She said, "Oh, I think you're a Kuat Milat." And then she, in that scene, Narissa puts away her gun and pretends that she's gonna fight him hand to hand, and then she kills. Oh, look, I'm crying. I'm remembering how horrible.
Aww.
I'm emotional. I can't take it.
Right now.
Thank you. No, it was too much. I'm glad I'm not recording. Audience, you don't want to see my crying face for Hugh, who I love. It's a character that I really love a lot.
And now we're going to go into Starfleet Boy deep conversations.
Starfleet Boy's gonna mute the mic so that he can blow his nose, because when you start crying. so Trekkerprise is gonna continue with his thoughts on that scene.
Okay, so while Captain Sohail is blowing his nose, which is totally normal in this podcast, because that's how always happens. Yeah, that scene is absolutely for me, as I mentioned in my blog post, it was unnecessary. For me, at least, I really wish that Hugh was still with us. I genuinely thought that he's gonna survive. Having this whole Zhat Vash and Combat Milat battle as well. Of course, Romulans, and I think we got to know Romulans quite well, apart from one or two examples that don't really trust them. So even when he says like, okay, I'm going to put my gun away, and then we can do this like man to man or woman to man, or warrior to warrior. It's not just it's never how it's gonna plays out, and this episode in this scene it really didn't play out as well. So kudos to Elnor, though, that he's a fantastic warrior, and he managed to save himself from all these bad things happened. However, he wasn't able to kill Rizzo. Rizzo, or what's his name? What's her name then now?
Well, her name is actually Narissa. So she was known as Rizzo when she was in her human disguise.
I kind of wonder if Rizzo and Narissa, I mean the Admiral Commodore O, if she knew that Rizzo is actually a Romulan spy, or I might be asking something that was quite obvious, and probably already a lot of people went over it. I think that's like how it happened, but I'm not sure.
I used to think that, well, to me it's very clear that Commodore O is the leader of this interesting, faction called the Zhat Vash, and Narissa, and she says in the scene before the credits, I think, or is it after the credits? It's before the credits.
Before?
She gets. Oh, hold on a second. Come in. Thank you so much. You can come in all the way. There's no video. It's fine. Sorry. I'm having my food delivered. So this is to honor Gates McFadden. She noticed that we eat on the show because we're casual and informal. So Hopefully, Gates McFadden is enjoying the new format if she's listening. And we'll get that going over here in just a second. All right. So, sorry. All right. Very good. Very proper. All right. So, Starfleet Boy is going to eat. This is for the ASMR audience. You have to guess what I'm going to eat. But before I eat, I guess I was going to say that to me, Narissa, the actor who's playing Narissa, and I don't know her name off the top of my head, is doing a really good job at being a bad guy. Because I hate her. I hate the character. I'm so angry at this character. She killed my precious Hugh, who deserved, as you said, a long storyline. So Star Trek did a good job of getting me. You know, I think that when you write a show, you can do it a couple of different ways, right? I think Michael Chabon has chosen, he said on Instagram that he's chosen to have one of the big themes in Star Trek Picard to be about loss. And so it's almost stupid, if you don't mind me getting a little unprofessional here. But it's almost stupid to kill off characters that just appear for 5 minutes just to do a death toll. If you're gonna have a show about loss, I think we have to lose some big, heavy characters, and so I get why we lost Hugh at the end of the day. It's something we'll carry with us, and when Picard finds out Hugh is dead, imagine his reaction. He's gonna feel a profound sense of loss, just like we did, and it's gonna mean something to him as a character as well. So, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I really don't believe that Hugh is gone. But if this is his ending, I'm okay with it.
Well, you know, if this is his ending, I have to be okay with it as well, because, you know, like, I'm not in the position to say or do or influence these things. I wish I was. But I think Star Trek would be a bit different from what we got to know from Discovery and Star Trek Picard. But again, that's a different story. But yeah, if I actually, when you said that, you know, he might can be saved, because there's a thing in sci-fi, you never die in sci-fi. Even you're dead, you never die. Like, how many times, and I know I'm sidetracking here, but how many times they brought back the Doctor in the 50 something years in the history of Doctor Who? Like, many times. And probably they're gonna do the same thing with one or two characters as well. I mean, the Borg Queen has been resurrected a few times as well, in a sense. So yeah, it's interesting how they created this, as you mentioned, lost theme for this season, for this show. And definitely we can feel it, and not just going forward from Hugh, not just that, but I sense really strong and big loss from the main character, from the titular character of the show, as even when he ended up in Nepenthe, or he was, obviously when he's talking about Data, that's a big loss that he's still processing in a sense. We didn't really get to talk about Geordi and Worf. How did they got separated, or even Beverly? We never got to that point of the story from the character point of view. But I did notice when he ended up in the Riker's planet, that he was experiencing some sort of a shame of, you know, that he wasn't visiting, or even when he was reaching out to Raffi as well. So there's a lot of layers of loss in that one character as well, that kind of makes me feel pity for him, in a not in a really bad way, just in a very emotional way, saying that he's not the kind of person who used to be. He must have done something along the way that reached to this point when he feels a tiny bit ashamed for the relationship that he kind of got out of. And it does feel like, even with their interaction, it was really sweet to see them, don't get me wrong, but it was still really emotional and powerful to come through this to this sense of, you know, shame of like, hey, why didn't I kept in touch with these guys in the long years, or why didn't I get to this person in long years. um but there's some deep stuff going on within Picard as well.
It's really surprising that Captain Picard just gave up. It's a really hard kind of fact to digest, but I feel like after this episode, it doesn't matter because now he's awake. He's alive, like he says in the episode to Soji, and it's a beautiful scene. He says, "I'm alive now," and if you want to look at it on a meta level, it represents, Patrick Stewart went off and had a wonderful career, and he kind of like was never expecting to come back to Star Trek, and to me, it's like that's he gave up on Star Trek. So to me it feels very raw, vulnerable, and real in a sense, and he found a good reason to put his spacesuit back on, and that makes me so happy because he's such a great actor. And did you watch the Ready Room with Will Wheaton?
I don't think I can, because I don't have either Facebook or I'm outside of the US, and outside of the US, even the StarTrek.com website restricts me to watch content which is a damn straight stupid things. Forgive my French, but yeah. World Wide Web is not really worldwide anymore.
Well, hopefully the clearance level that you have from being on Starfleet Boy will give you access to some new content. But what I will say is that Jonathan Frakes remarks in the episode of the Ready Room that Sir Patrick Stewart is doing the best Picard he's ever done, and I 100% agree. When he's on screen, I don't care about anything else. That's the only thing that matters to me is Picard, until this episode, because we got our beloved Riker, we got our beloved Troi, and that's the problem, is that even though this episode gives us the loss of Hugh, who I love too, it also brought back, it finally got us on screen in canon, for those who care about that stuff, the continuation of Troi, Riker, and Riker's story, and then to see the three characters together. The thing about the actors, all of them, is at this point these characters are living inside of them in a very real and beautiful way. So Marina Sirtis just brought Troi 100% into 2020 and Riker, and I just love their life. I like their choices. I like how the characters ended up. I love that they prioritized their family over Starfleet. This was something that I can't argue with. That's why if your son becomes ill, you're gonna leave your captaincy, right? And isn't that a very honorable way to kind of leave the Titan?
Yeah,
I like it because I think that there's potentials here. We are looking at this in such a limited way, but Star Trek Riker, or Troi Riker, which is their proper surname, Star Trek Troi Riker can be a real thing, and I think, or at least in short tracks or something like that, and it just excited me so much. And then just the way it was filmed, everyone looks so beautiful, everyone looks perfect, perfectly themselves, if you don't like the way they look. But I think Jonathan Frakes is a very handsome man, and he has such a powerful presence on screen, and when he plays Riker, it's different from anything else he ever does. I've met Jonathan Frakes, and it was intimidating because he's such a great character in my mind, and also he's just a very I think he's actually really Zeus. I don't think it's Jonathan Frakes. I think Zeus is on our planet pretending to be an actor,
pretending to be Jonathan
that's the
Frakes.
kind of presence. That's how I felt being in his presence. But Zeus, to that effect, Zeus, the god of lightning, is so kind, and his eyes, when I spoke to him, I was so silly. I've already told this story on
I don't think I heard it.
He was so kind. He was so kind to me, and he made me feel so appreciated, even though I was fumbling my words and I couldn't remember what I wanted to say, and I probably seemed like really, really dumb to him, but he didn't make me feel that way, which was wonderful.
I like
Those are my own insecurities. But anyways, seeing him back in character as Riker, I nearly fainted, and seeing Troi and Picard and Riker interacting with each other, to me this was like a level of joy that I can't even I could just talk for an hour about how much joy, but I won't. But then on top of that, you get Kestra, who's perfect. She represents the two of them. She has her mother's empathy and her father's bravery and curiosity.
Yeah.
And she's just like, and she knows all their adventures. Like when she's telling Soji about her father or grandfather, probably, if you really want to talk about it, but we don't know the truth yet.
Yeah.
But I get, but when she's telling Soji about Data, it's just a beautiful scene, because that's how any kid who watched Star Trek: The Next Generation would talk about Data.
Yeah.
A very innocent, pure way, and then I don't know. I just really felt very moved by all that. So even though we lost a great character, to me, this was the payoff. This is what made it worth it to go through the struggles that I've been having with the show. And my struggles, by the way, are very minor to some other people's. I've had guests on who are miserable and hate Star Trek Picard.
Oh my day.
But I can't feel the same way at
No,
all.
I can't hate it. Hate is a very strong word that I wouldn't put into perspective when I'm talking about Star Trek. Not even Discovery, which I know for me is a really big thing because I'm not really fond of the series. I might just actually change that. I was not. But that's really different day.
Wow.
No, I think time made me to go around it a little bit, and I have a feeling that Picard helped a little bit too. Even though I know without Discovery,
I feel that
even
a lot.
though without
Yeah,
Discovery it wouldn't be Picard, but you know what I mean.
Wait, even though what?
Even though without Discovery we wouldn't have Picard, I have a feeling, but yeah, Picard helped a lot to come around with my feelings for Discovery. Are you still there?
I'm just a little blown away. Yeah, I'm a little blown away right now.
Really? Why? What did I do? Or what did you do? What?
You just revealed you became very vulnerable. You let us know that you really like Discovery. You're starting to like it.
Okay, I'm not saying I'm really liking it, but I definitely don't not liking it. I'm definitely not liking it.
I think you're right about what you said about Picard may not exist if it weren't. At least it wouldn't exist right now.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
like I said, someone out there's got to be a billionaire who would have brought back TNG to the world, but
yeah, he would be like asking Patrick Stewart, like, how much did you get for all the X-Men movies? This much. Just like, okay, how about I double this sum, and you can play Picard for 10 episodes.
I actually want Patrick Stewart to become the first actor to be paid $1 billion for a project. Because I know he would do so much good with that money. He wouldn't keep it all for himself.
That would make someone really, really angry, for sure. And I know who would that someone
that would
be.
what?
That would make someone really angry and pissed.
Who?
Who? Mr. Shatner.
You know that? Are you sure?
I'm just joking.
I know. I think William Shatner should just be paid $1 billion for being a human. He's a great human. Absolutely. He doesn't need to come back as Captain Kirk.
Actually, he mentioned in one of his tweets that my story has been told very well from the beginning to the end, so I don't need to come back. I think he mentioned it in one of his tweets, and I was like, this is brilliant. Like, he accepts that my story has been told. I don't want to come back and do all sort of crazy stunts that I won't be able to do anymore.
He's doing the right thing. He's doing the right thing because his generation left on a high note. Why would you want to change anything about it?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, they had an ending. They had a complete story.
With Picard, we always got that kind of open door with Nemesis looking going forward that, hey, what is happening? And then, the Enterprise was still going on its venture, but the crew was kind of going all over the place, and Data wasn't there. So there's a lot of area and aspects of the characters and the show to explore. So of course, and the characters were still quite young, compared to like the original series actors, who they are quite elderly by now, and none of them are around. Much of them are around anymore. So yeah, there's still stories to tell, and I think it's really graceful to see them in this day and age again. And TNG is kind of new, so everyone who born in the 80s and 90s, Next Generation was definitely at some point was part of their life. I mean, it was certainly my life in one way or another.
The Picard show that I would have loved 100% more than I already loved this one is one that was where the crew was all together. But I'm realizing that one, that would not feel like a real story, and two, it wouldn't include all the Star Trek that has come because of TNG.
Yep.
And I love that we're getting cameos and getting little glimpses of each of these characters' stories and what they've been doing as Jean-Luc finds his way in his own story. And it's just I think it's set up really well.
It is a beautiful thing. I mean, just thinking about the how they started saying as well Star Trek universe instead of just Star Trek: The Next Generation or Picard or whatever. Like this is part of.
I feel so on board with that. I think that's very
beautiful.
appropriate.
Like you have multiple characters to represent in from many different shows, and having the show broadened out the scale of the Next Generation towards DS9 and Voyager, and hopefully we will see some callbacks to other shows as well in the future. I wouldn't be sad if we won't, but I wouldn't be sad if we would see either. So but yeah, it's fantastic. I think this is a very, very good change what's happening with Star Trek. Picard started something really special here.
He's doing this show is doing exactly what Star Trek is supposed to do, which is to take the audiences to the next level and bring in new audiences that never before came. I think this show will bring in parents of kids, and then the Soji Enterprise Captain show will be the one that brings the next generation into Star Trek. I think that's going to happen 100%.
So I remember when,
and I really hope Isa Briones is on board for it. She's amazing. I want her to have her own Star Trek show.
So now you wanted an old man Picard show, you got it, and now you want a young girl Data show that you're probably gonna get.
I want a young girl Data Captain of the Enterprise show, and I'm gonna get it, damn it. Because you know what, Gary, I'm on a mission, and when I'm on a mission, not even you, CBS, can stop me.
Wow.
Just kidding. That was my impression of Jean-Luc in this episode.
Did you do the French accent in the episode when they went down to Free Cloud?
I did. You have to watch that. It's very fun.
I've been listening to a few podcasts, and everyone was like doing a French accent. Like this is how they introduce themselves. Like.
By the way, I have a report to give from the doctor because he has asthma and has lost his voice and could not be on today.
Oh, I sympathize with him. I have allergic asthma as well myself. Well, without any symptoms, but I kind of know what he's going through.
He says, I can barely speak, but I'll comment on the video when it's up. I don't have much to say, really. It's my favorite episode so far, and the only one thus far that I would rewatch. That's a big statement from the doctor. So to me, that's a 10 from the doctor. Just letting you know, Gary, with your lower than 10 rating here, that the doctor gave it a 10.
Probably
and then I must
up
point out also.
Anyway.
What's
it's probably going to end up at 9 point
that?
Something at the end anyway, so it's going to be 10.
We'll see. And then Sean gave a rating which is invalid. His rating doesn't count for this episode because he publicly promised Marina Sirtis that he was saving the 10 for the episode when she came on. And so this gets a 10 from Trek on the Tube as well. So that's 3 10s against whatever rating you're gonna give. Just letting you know in advance. That's the power of today, of this episode. But before we get to the ratings, I wanted to ask you something. What did you think of Kestra?
Okay, so that was one of the part that I expressed myself on quite a long segment in my blog. I loved it. I loved the notion behind Kestra, because I love Lwaxana Troi. I think she's one of the all-time favorite character of mine, and even though she wasn't like 5 or 6 episode overall, but she's such a perfect character in her own way, and having to witness her loss of her daughter before Deanna, who named Kestra, and having Deanna Troi calling her daughter Kestra, and that's just brilliant.
Really nice.
It's just such a beautiful thing to have, and of course the parallel between Deanna's loss and Lwaxana's loss is just such a massive callback to family history in a sense, and to TNG as well.
Well, and Deanna has lost already a child in a way, because remember the episode The Child?
Yeah.
Where the little... Yeah, and so she lost that child. But then also, because I can't imagine Lwaxana's still around, but she's probably died too.
I have a feeling.
Because I'm sure...
I have a feeling that she passed
that,
away in the original.
So she probably also witnessed... Because who could play Lwaxana Troi except Majel Roddenberry? Except for in a flashback.
They would lost me. I mean, I would probably watch the episode if they would bring back Lwaxana Troi with a new character, but I can't. That's I know there's a few characters that I wouldn't mind if they would recast the people, like what they did with the original crew in a different timeline. That's totally fine. But when they do it in universe, some of them are acceptable. Like I loved Anson Mount as Spike. Ethan Peck was good as Spock, and I think Rebecca Romaine did a fantastic job as well with number 1. But please don't do Majel.
You don't want Majel. That's how my sister feels about Spock, by the way. She feels the same way as you do. She thinks that the other Spocks were not... She won't watch Discovery because of Spock, actually. She doesn't want to see... she doesn't want to see a Spock. She doesn't want to see a Spock other than Leonard Nimoy. She said she might watch it, but she won't approve of it.
But that's totally fine. I mean, you don't have to, accept everything that CBS, essentially the owners of Star Trek, put in front of you. I mean, you're not less of a fan if you don't do that. If you don't...
What are you talking about, Gary?
What?
Yes, you are. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm teasing you. I apologize. That was a bad joke.
No, that's okay.
No, I agree 100%. I think of the characters differently. I think that I have the same emotional attachments that both of you do. But if Lwaxana were to come back, I would think that it would only be in flashback, and it would have to be a very young Lwaxana Troi, so that you could cast a new person. But I don't think you could bring back older
No,
Lwaxana
I don't
Troi.
think so. And I certainly don't want to see CGI Lwaxana Troi. That just... No. Hard no.
That might be
there's something that I want to point out, and I was kind of thinking while I was doing my review on the blog, but I didn't. I think it was just too late, and I kind of got carried away with other things. So, Deanna's son, who passed away, called Thaddeus. Yeah, Thaddeus Riker. And I knew that there was a connection. So in the Voyager episode, Death Wish, that's second season, 18th episode. It's a very good episode. Once you start your Voyager journey, let me know. That's a very fantastic episode.
Or when I get to that episode, because I'm not there yet.
When you get to that episode,
right? I have started my Voyager journey.
Oh,
you mean online? You mean like my video journey? Yes, I understand. Okay. Got it.
So there's an might be a major spoiler for you. It's a minor spoiler because nothing to do too much with the episode. But Riker appears in that episode as Riker, and Q shows him a picture of a wounded soldier who's Riker's great grandfather or parent or whatever, really back in the days, and his name is Colonel Thaddeus Riker.
Oh, how nice!
So that's basically he
they
named his son
that him.
after his after her, so after him. So basically, either and Castro and Thaddeus is like a canon connection. If we really want to go on down that way.
So his name it's written
down
in the episode is actually it's Thaddeus Troi Riker because they use a hyphenated last name.
But his great grand dad was called Thaddeus Riker.
In Michael Chabon does a Q&A on Instagram. It's really fun. He answered one of my questions on it once, and it was really delightful how he answered it. But he mentioned that Thaddeus was definitely more empathic, like his mother.
Oh.
Too. So he was probably a very gifted, but also troubled in some ways. But the thing is that you know how Tam Elbram was like a genius, and he could only act, composed when he was around Deanna. I feel like that's what it was like raising Thaddeus. He was such a gifted and creative child. I mean, he invented before he was Jean-Luc says he was 5 and he was already inventing languages. So you can only imagine by the time he was 11, he already created these very rich fantasies. And I want to point out something I keep forgetting to point it out. To me, Thaddeus Riker is kind of represents storytellers in general. How there's so many stories out there, and I think there's a line in the trailer of Star Trek Picard where he says something like, "Your story is just waiting for you to claim it," And I think that's a wonderful thing that Thaddeus kind of represents. And I'm reminded so much in Star Trek Discovery, there were a lot of hints, some very obvious, some not so obvious, of a connection to a great work of fiction called Alice in Wonderland. And in Star Trek Picard, I keep seeing references to another great work of fiction, which is Lord of the Rings. And I don't know, how familiar are you with Lord of the Rings, Gary?
Familiar enough that I don't have interest to watch it or read it.
I would like to tell you. No, it's okay. I would like to tell you that it is one of the greatest works, in my opinion, of humanity, that it should survive with, whatever time capsules we put into the future, that Lord of the Rings is this kind of work. And I've read the books twice in my life, and I've seen the movies, and I love them and everything. And so far, there's a very nice connection to the Lord of the Rings saga. I think of Jean-Luc, the Hermit of Labar, in a way like Bilbo Baggins, and he's been awoken by a wizard, which is Daj, and now he's on a mission to save his world, to save all of humanity, to save the galaxy in this case. And so he creates a fellowship just like Bilbo does, in a way, of different characters, a motley crew, as Jean-Luc refers to them in this episode. And this episode represents something that happens in the Fellowship of the Rings, which is a different character story other than Bilbo's, but it all is an extension of his character. It's Frodo Baggins' story. But I would say that in this episode, what reminds me the most is the way Riker and Troi live with their daughter in this beautiful planet called Nepenthe reminds me so much of a character in Lord of the Rings called Tom Bombadil. And I had a point to all this. Tom Bombadil never made it to the movies of Lord of the Rings. It's a character only in the books. And I always hoped that if it did get, if that scene ever made it into the movies, that Jonathan Frakes could play Tom Bombadil, because Tom Bombadil is like a god, essentially in the Lord of the Rings universe. And that's how I see Jonathan Frakes. So see, I tied it all up, Gary. Thanks for letting me go on that really long that really long
Hey, of
explanation
course,
of Starfleet Boy.
of course. That's what makes it interesting and unique.
All right, should we? Is there anything else we want to say about this
I'm
episode
not sure
before
if
we give
you
it our
talked about it in
ratings?
the previous. I haven't got a chance to watch it or listen to it. But did I feel that Diana was not entirely happy seeing Jean-Luc, and she was not entirely happy interacting with Soji? Yeah, because when
You got that out of it?
I got a little bit of it. When obviously when Picard and Diana went to Thaddeus' room, and Picard was kept saying that love must have been really hard, and at one point Diana was like, "It's really nice that you came back, Jean-Luc." Like you could actually feel that, like I seen her facial impression that, why did you have to bring this up? Why did you have to come along with this? I kind of trying to
Oh, that's
cope with
interesting
this, and
because what I saw in that scene was that she's been living with her family, going through all this grief, and it's just nice to have another. Because she really thinks of Jean-Luc as a father, and so to me in that scene, when he says, she's talking about everything, and he says, Deanna, this loss in a different way. He knows her in a way that, like, and can talk to her in a way that maybe even Riker cannot, because it's obvious that Riker is very careful with their relationship and their love. He's so supportive. He calls her Imzadi
yeah.
all the time. He's wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But Jean-Luc is like a father. He will cross a line that Riker will never cross. And I think so. I see what you're saying, where she's a little surprised that he would bring up something so intimate that she's been holding back. So for her, it's also a release in a way, because she hasn't had to deal with this. And I think that he's helping. This is the thing, is that Jean-Luc should never have abandoned his duty, which was always to his crew, no matter what. And I like that, to me it's unfair to hold anyone to that standard of they have to be perfect all the time. You know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, it's sad that Jean-Luc was not there for these people. And I think she's genuinely happy that now the captain is back in her life, the person she really looks up to and cares for. But to your point, and I think it's just a different color from what you were saying, instead of like feeling like she doesn't want him here, I think she's confessing to him that she just can't take another loss. She can't lose Kestra. You know what I mean? She just has to like let him know, I'm going to do whatever you want me to do. I'm here for you. I love you. But if anything happened to Kestra, I can't go on. I will sacrifice myself for my daughter.
Yeah.
In other words, and it's powerful. That's why I think it's such a powerful scene. And again, Marina Sirtis, these actors, they're friends. They're all, we know the famous tales that the TNG crew were very close to each other and were very friendly, and you can see it in all their public engagements. They seem to get along very well together.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you see it. It's so powerful. Marina Sirtis deserves, I think, all the awards. I don't know if streaming shows get Emmys, but I think she deserves an Emmy for bringing back Troi. And Jonathan Frakes was nervous that he couldn't bring Riker back. And I just want to say on this podcast that if Jonathan Frakes ever hears this, that Riker's back 100%. There was no doubting who the man that we were seeing. In my opinion,
no, not at all. No. He was absolutely amazing.
William T. Riker.
He was absolutely amazing. Like. Even the little interaction when he put the puzzle together and he told Jean-Luc, like, I'm not gonna ask you, I'm just gonna say what I think.
Great scene.
Fantastic.
Scene.
And he was like, oh, how did I do? And Jean-Luc was like, oh, not bad from a pizza chef. That's just hilarious. And he's amazing. Like,
great scene. Such a great scene.
He owns the screen, for sure. I mean, Jean-Luc owns the Patrick Stewart owns the screen when he's on, but in this one, I think full owning for Jonathan Frakes for sure. He's the only TNG character, I think, a TNG actor who I never met. And every time I book
Oh, Jonathan Frakes is so delightful.
every time I book a picture or book a picture with him to take a picture with him, I think he's the only one who I don't have any interaction with in real life. And every time he cancels, so I'm like so bummed all the time. Like I'm
I
afraid.
remember you mentioning that. Well, I was lucky that I caught him then because I can also understand why he probably cancels. I mean, at the same, the conventions are probably a very powerful draw, but he obviously loves to direct and make TV and make films. So if he has to go to work, he has to go to work,
Of course,
and I respect that.
Obviously I understand that too, and I respect that he he has work to do, and eventually that's what his passion is, and he does amazing based on interaction and based on other fans and yourself. I'm hearing he's a lovely person. I always forgive him not showing up
lovely
in
person.
Europe to to entertain us. But yeah, one day I'm gonna get him.
He'll make appearances when he wants to, and we'll just have to be lucky enough to catch him. But that's how Tom Bombadil works. That's how these great people work. I think he's been better this last year. I've seen him at more online. I've seen him at more things than I've ever seen him at. So it's pretty nice to see Jonathan Frakes. But you have to watch The Ready Room, Gary. I think you'll love seeing it, and you can see what he's like. And Brent Spiner's on that episode too.
Oh,
and
my
he's so
arch
delightful
enemy.
as well. All right, so I want to do some predictions. Can we do? Have you seen the Next Time on Picard trailer?
Only once. But only once, but we can do some predictions.
Is 7 of 9 going to become the new Borg Queen?
I read that a few times in a few places, and even Jonathan Delarco tweeted recently like, "Oh, I love you, my Borg Queen," with capital B, capital Q. And someone reminded like that's new when actors give away spoilers. But I think that was Laurie Loaded who pointed out. But yeah, I hope not. I really hope she's not gonna be the new Borg Queen.
I know. I want her to stay human too, but we might have to have more loss on
No, I don't want her to. Deep down I wish, and probably it's never gonna happen. It's just like one of these fantasy dream sequences in my head that she's gonna be in the Borg cube, searching Eleanor, fighting against the Romulans, and just before she's gonna end up being in trouble or getting killed by a Romulan disruptor beam, she's gonna be transported up to the bridge of Voyager, and Admiral Janeway will be there. But that's never gonna happen. It happened in my fantasy. I'm happy already. But no, I don't know. I hope she's not gonna become the Borg Queen.
No, we'll see what happens. We have no idea. We'll never know until it happens. But that's next week in a few more days.
But one thing was interesting that someone also pointed out that with this whole Jurati trying to kill herself or like get herself out of the picture, and pictures that Commodore O showed her regarding the future and how everything plays out with the synths. Someone pointed out that might be Control is coming back in a sense, because they has been like kind of terminated in the past in the Discovery era, and obviously they probably got they probably still exist sometimes in the 31st or 30 something century, and maybe because of that problem, obviously that's just some temporal thingy that probably we shouldn't go in, but maybe in the future they knew that didn't work out, so they have to come backwards and disturb the Federation and the entire galaxy in a different way to to disturb the force.
Control the idea for Control came from the TNG era, because there's a Section 31 novel that deals with something very similar, and Bashir is the head, I think, of Section 31 or something like that. This might be a good reason to point out that the Trek Book Club might know the answer. to that run by Trekkie Rob Chapman. But I think I wouldn't have a problem with Control being a small part of Picard, but I definitely would rather keep Control as the main villain of Discovery. I do think that Control is around during the time of Picard, but I don't think it's as active as it will be later.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have a feeling that whatever they are going to discover, it's eventually going to end the control in the which century are we in now? 25th? 24th, 25th?
I think it's the 25th century, yeah. Or the turn of the 25th. It's like about to be the 25th century. I think we're ending the 24th
century. Yeah, so I really hope that, that storyline will stick with Discovery in the future. So they're probably gonna end up finding something in the future that they have to fight for and, restore the Federation how it was before. Which is an interesting thing to witness in Picard as well from the very beginning, that the Federation is kind of going to a different direction. People are not really welcoming with the Romulans, and fractions are kind of trying to find some points to argue about, and eventually maybe that will reflect on the 33rd century that we're going to see in the Discovery in season 3.
I'm actually really surprised at how independent Star Trek Picard is from Star Trek Discovery, although I like that there's little hints of it. Obviously, the writers from Star Trek Discovery, many of them are writing for Star Trek Picard. So there's that. And I think, again, to me, there's a lot of critique. The writers get so much attention, negative and positive attention for Star Trek. And I think some of that has to do with, if you are a writer, you'd be so envious and you're a fan of Star Trek, you'd be envious of them. But on the other hand, I think also some of them are very new or haven't had a lot of experience. But why is that a problem? Why do we have to have Star Trek staffed with only seasoned writers? I think that's unfair. I think everyone needs a shot. There's some careers. I think there were very young writers on TNG and young writers, on other shows. So I think that's a good, positive thing. And not every writing choice works for everyone. So that being said,
yeah, no, I agree.
There's a lot of critique for the writers, but I think the writers are great, and I'm proud of them. And I would gladly, I would love to, if I had the skills that any of them have, I would love to be a part of Star Trek from that perspective as well. I've already decided, by the way, Gary, what my role in Star Trek will be if I ever get hired by Star Trek. Did I tell you about this?
No, you haven't. No, you didn't. Tell me.
I have a passion for coffee, so I would love to become the first Star Trek Picard coffee boy. And I would make coffee for Sir Patrick and everyone, even the interns. I could make coffee for them. And I'm asking for a very low salary when it comes to the budget of Star Trek. Has a huge budget, so I want to be the coffee boy for about $350,000 a year. I think that's a good price. You will find that my coffee is worth that price, but more than that, just having someone on set every day that loves what you're doing is priceless. So that's that. There's that as well.
I mean, if I would be able to be in Star Trek and being in the creation of Star Trek, I would love to be. I would love to participate for sure. But I think I would have to be the pastry chef. No, I wouldn't be a pastry chef. I'm not a good cook. I'm not a good cook. Sean.
Oh, we could be the
Sean would be.
No, I could be the coffee. I'll be the coffee person, and you'll be the pizza chef.
No, yeah, I could wear the same same kitchen gown that Riker was wearing in this episode. But it was actually this just reminded me of Enterprise as well, because you remember we watched the last episode of Enterprise.
Riker, yeah, it's a deep cut because Riker was chef on Star Trek. It ended up being Commander Riker the whole time.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, it just got into my mind, so it was interesting to see him cooking again.
I hope I hope that Trek on the Tube is listening to all these deep cuts and Easter eggs that we're finding in our discussion.
He is the pastry chef. He has to be a
No,
pastry chef in the set of Picard or Discovery. And you know, Jean-Luc orders a croissant in one of the episodes, and then that would be actually Sean would make a cameo. He would be the servant who would bring the, like, here you are, Monsieur, Monsieur Picard.
All right, it's time to give our ratings. Gary, is there no way to appeal to your better senses and have you reconsider giving this episode below a 10, or is it going to remain at below a 10?
Okay, so you were right at the very beginning. I was going with the 9, and I know you told me if you win, I'm going to going to have to change my ratings. I would see unfair if I would change it to 9.5, and on the way of the conversation, you actually made it easier to cope with all these deaths, and you know, you kind of pointed out a really good point that for the sake of the story, and even though I still don't really agree with killing characters so frequently in Star Trek Picard and in any other previous shows, I would have loved it without, but I'm gonna give it a 10.
Wow! I didn't even have to change your rating. That's amazing.
Well,
you did it all by yourself.
You didn't have to change it. Your companionship in this podcast helped me a lot.
Oh my gosh! I feel like I'm therapy for Star Trek Picard.
Well,
I'm happy to be that.
Just as you mentioned, just as you mentioned to me last time that I'm your warm blanket sometimes.
Yes,
right back at you, my friend.
Thank you so much. Well, big credit to Marina Sirtis, because as a kid watching Counselor Troi help people to cope with things like death, helped me to cope with the death and the loss that I'm experiencing in Star Trek Picard. And when her character came back on screen, all of those feelings of love just flooded back into my heart. And so big shout out to her and to Jonathan Frakes, who also fills me with the same love and joy. So look forward to seeing you again. I have a final note, which is I think it's very clear that Riker and Troi are going to be getting on the subspace and contacting Geordi and Worf and Beverly.
You reckon? You reckon?
I reckon if that's not happening, then I don't know Star Trek, is all I gotta say. And that might be the case. All right, Gary, thank you for joining me. What do you have to promote this week before we go?
So I don't have anything to promote. I didn't prepare.
Well, you have your blog. You have to promote.
Well, I have
your
my blog that I post my thoughts, and I have my YouTube that I'm back on, and there's a video scheduled for tomorrow. Yay! Yeah. Yeah. No pressure on that either. Yeah. But other than that, there's nothing else to promote from me. I'm just a good old dude who talks about Star Trek in his YouTube channel and blog.
Wonderful.
What do you have to promote?
All right, sir. I have to promote an episode I did a week ago. We're taking a break from Drunk Space Nine. We don't have a real schedule for Drunk Space Nine, but we're taking a break from it since I have a cold, so no drinking and podcasting this weekend. But if you guys want, apparently we're getting a lot of good reviews for the previous episode of Drunk Space Nine. It was a very funny and intense episode. And then, of course, Starfleet Boy. That's the other thing I have to do. And I'm starting a project that will be revealed hopefully by my 42nd birthday, which is in May. So I guess I'll start promoting that and get people excited about that now. So look out for the Starfleet Boy project, and get more details on that.
I'm intrigued now. I want
What's
details.
that? Oh, good. It worked. It worked. All right, Gary. Live long and prosper. Jolan True. And we'll see you next time, audience. Thank you. Let us know what you think in the comments below.